What if I told you Nvidia should not exist? According to the CEO and founder of Nvidia, Jensen Huang, founded in 1993, I'll have you know, so been around a while. He was interviewed, and one of his answers shocked me. He actually admitted that if he had to do it again, he would not start Nvidia, which shocked me. He just said it is too hard. It's 1,000 times harder. All of these things going on. He admitted that he shouldn't have started it. And I think that is shocking to see that kind of admission. So I wanted to ask Dana, what the heck? And what's he talking about, Dana? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of founders or soon to be founders who come to me and say, I think I'm going to start a company.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably the most brutally honest person. And
Awesome.
I'm not trying to scare them away. I'm just saying that, are you sure you want to do this? And it's interesting because, I don't just hang out with founders that are in prop tech. I hang out with founders across, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, other places who are in any industry. And they all say the same thing. You leave a 9 to 5, right, where you have a steady paycheck, cash flow, to basically work 24/7, around the clock.
Yeah.
And it comes with a lot of sacrifices. You need a partner who basically understands that. With your kids, it's like you're not going to be going to every single event. You don't really have PTO. I actually have been taking a vacation day. I've actually never been a day away from my phone. And the real question is it possible to do like a 9 to 5 when you're starting a company, right? I'm in the mindset that if it's something that isn't changing an industry and really making this like big difference, and maybe you're just acquiring an existing company that already has processes set up, absolutely. I think, that's called a search fund. But when you are going against all odds to prove yourself out that this new model should exist, and this is why we do what we do, you find yourself to be in that situation. And so, it's interesting because we have like an executive coach here at Hemlane. And I'm not I'm super big on advising, personal development, getting basically folks who are smarter than me in the room to help better me. But what's really interesting is with that executive coach, a lot of times I find it's because of those peaks and troughs that you go through as a founder, and it actually makes you a stronger person. So one of the things I would say is that what I love about being a founder and building Hemlane is that I've developed more than I ever thought possible. Everyone on our team has developed more than they ever thought possible. And obviously the customers do that for us. Wow, you changed our life. This is so different and so new. This has really helped me. But
Yeah.
going through all of that, you're going to have some really low lows.
Mm.
And it's just the nature of trying to do everything. As a founder, you suddenly are, doing the engineering, doing the marketing, doing the sales, doing the operations. And what's interesting about it is like if you go into a company and become a CEO of a Fortune 500, they already have leaders to do all of that.
Right.
And you're responsible for just poking holes into each one and figuring out which one needs, whether it's restructuring, better leadership, a huge change. But when you do it at a startup level, there's no one doing it for you. And you have to do that and you have to build that entire team. It's not built for you.
Mm.
And so what ends up happening is you grow yourself personally more than you ever thought possible at the expense of your own time and other things in your life. Also, at the same time, you don't have that salary. You are what they say, equity rich, cash poor.
Mm.
So from that perspective, you really are giving up a lot. Usually you are the most underpaid person at your company because you're looking at your books and your finances. So going back to the question of like, would I start Hemling again? I would say absolutely, because of the customers and because of the innovation.
Yeah.
Would I say personally, could I do it again? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I remember even those early years where it was a lot of sacrifices, even to my family, to say I can't be there.
Yeah.
And it was really, really hard. Those were the lows where it was, Saturday or Sunday, and everyone else is at a family event and I'm not there. And so there's that I toggle with of it is like, could I do it again? Not quite sure. Would I do it again? Absolutely, for the customers. But it is interesting, it's been, when I graduated in 2008, there wasn't such thing as like an entrepreneurship, even program in universities. Now every university has these entrepreneurship programs and tell you to become a startup founder.
Mm.
And what's really, I think, scary about it is when I speak with those students, I don't know if they know realistically what it takes to go into entrepreneurship
Yeah.
and what sacrifices you do have to make. And so, yeah, I always think like, after Hemling, which is not anytime soon, but after Hemling, could I start another company? And at this point, I say, this is it. This is everything. I'm giving everything to this, and I'll probably potentially crash afterwards. But maybe
Right.
that will change. I've seen founders almost forget. It's almost like when you have kids, you forget how hard it is. I
Yeah.
think it's the same thing with starting a company. Like you get out of it and then you only remember the good days.
Yeah.
Maybe that does happen. But I do give folks those, I do give anyone looking to start a company, I do look to almost scare them away. There's a really good book on it. It's called The Founder's Dilemma
Hmm.
by Noam Wasserman. And the Founder's Dilemma will tell you all of the reasons startups fail and basically what it takes. And it's all data driven, that you're 50% more likely to succeed if you have a co-founder versus being solo. All sorts of different tips and tricks in there. But when you go through it, that's why I think founders, even if they're a competitor, you're almost still friends with them because you relate at even a more personal level than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Jensen said in the article is it was thousands of times harder than he expected. So if you go back to the beginning and where you are now, would you kind of agree with that sentiment? It was wildly harder than you thought it would be.
I would say like a billion times harder. I never ever expected it to be this challenging
Okay.
at all. I really, when you're someone who comes from I did have a background in finance, so I was able to like manage the P&L and look at that. And then I found myself to say, hey, I talk to customers every day. I know the customers. And then I have a really strong CTO, my co-founder, right? I was thinking, hey, all the puzzle pieces are kind of together. And then we were very fortunate with our first hires that they were really, really strong. But still, even without any drama, like we didn't have any drama of an early employee suing us or, coming to us upset. It was still really, really hard. And it's not only hard just for the founders, it's also hard for the early employees as well, like your first team members,
Oh yeah.
that founding team, because they go through it just as much as you do.
The other thing I wanted to ask is like, did you always know you were going to be a founder and you were going to, like, when you were going to B school, was that B school, like when you applied to B school, was that to be a better employee or was that to skill up and become an entrepreneur?
Great question. I knew I was always the type of person who asked why. Every time I work, I'm like, why do we do it this way? Like, why do we have this legacy system? Why isn't there something better? I was basically that, I would say, annoying person in the office. So I knew that I wanted to build stuff. I knew I wanted
Okay.
to change things. I wasn't quite sure what it was. So when I went to business school, I said, hey, I could basically go into a smaller company or I could start something. Like I started a couple
Okay.
things on the side in business school. But once we found out how big Hemling could be, like what the problem was, the pain point, and that no one was solving it
Mhm.
in an innovative way, that's when I said, okay, this is it. we don't do this. I don't know anyone else who's going to do this.
Okay.
And it might take 5-10 years for someone to come up with this. So we're almost like, we're like 5 years ahead of everyone else of like,
Yeah.
there's technology in the cloud, there's virtual hybrid
Right.
property management. This is the future. And so from that perspective, I would say if we didn't find that, I'd probably be working at a smaller startup on the business side,
Okay.
doing different facets. And the idea in the market, the idea is not as important as how large the market is and how large the pain point is,
Right.
because your idea can change over time. But you do need something that's big market, big problem. And if you have that, you can go for it. And it's interesting, I don't know other industries as well. I'd have to, like, if someone says, what's the next thing you'd start? I don't know. All my time and attention
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
been and what's going on in prop tech. But I'd have to find those two things for a strong conviction to
Right.
do something again.
That is awesome. Well, I know there's thousands, not tens of thousands of people that are happy that Hemlane exists. So thank you for that. You are making it smoother. You're giving everybody a level of service, and you're helping mom and pop landlords. So I appreciate you. I know the audience does. If somebody wanted to get a trial or a POC, how would they do that? Because they need to practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, if you're looking to find and place a tenant or do property management, you can go to www.hemlane, which is HEMLANE.com, and just mention one rental at a time for 20% off your first year.
Awesome, folks. Go get the trial. Again, if you want to begin in the game, we're going into the slow season, but practice. Go get a 14-day trial, run through the script. There you go. Dana, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.